Hello there. Welcome to the Light Story Club. Settle in and find a comfy spot to relax. Before we get to the story, I would love to know your favorite myths and monsters. Comment where in the world you are and let's begin the story. When I was first born, if you could call it that, it wasn't to the sound of lullabies or in the warmth of sunlight. My name is Elira, and I came into being under the hush of midnight, wrapped in velvet shadows and the scent of old roses. The crypt where I opened my crimson eyes was silent, save for the soft crackle of candlelight and the rustle of silk from mother's robes. I remember the coolness of the stone slab beneath me. It wasn't uncomfortable, it was home. I had never felt warmth in the way mortals did, but that didn't mean I was unloved. Mother, pale and regal with eyes the color of storm clouds, cradled me with care. She whispered in an old tongue as she placed a drop of her own blood on my lips, a ritual of bonding, of awakening. It was bitter and sweet all at once, like biting into a blackberry left too long on the vine. "You are mine," she whispered, her voice a melody I would always remember. "And you are more than the night. You are its heart." I did not cry. Vampires do not cry when they are born. Instead, I blinked slowly at the flickering light and reached for the comfort of her long silver braid. My crib was an heirloom, carved from dark walnut and inlaid with ivory bats and moons. Though the crypt walls were cold and covered in vines from above, inside it felt like a world spun from soft shadows. My first memories are not of toys or mobiles, but of whispered poetry, goblets of rich crimson, and the ever-present hum of the earth above us. Father visited rarely, only when the moon was full. He was older, colder than mother, but not unkind. He watched me with amber eyes like a hunting cat, curious and distant. "She has your grace," he would say, nodding to mother. But her eyes, those are mine. I liked the way his voice vibrated through the ground before I ever saw his face. He brought me little treasures from the world above, a shiny rock shaped like a heart, the feather of a nightjar, the claw of a fox. To him, these were gifts of importance. I kept them in a little coffin-shaped box under my bed. I did not grow like human children did. My body remained small and slight for many years, but inside, something else grew: awareness, hunger, wonder. At 3, I could already speak the languages of the night. The tongue of owls, the dialect of shadows, the fluttering secrets of moths. Mother said my mind was ancient, though my fingers were still too small to tie a ribbon. Our home beneath the mausoleum was a palace in its own right. The walls were lined with velvet drapes to keep in the warmth, and lanterns filled with witchfire flickered a gentle blue. We had mirrors, though they did not show our reflections, and a long, haunted piano that mother played each dusk. The notes floated up through the earth and danced with the moonlight above. My first friend was a rat named Corvin. He was clever, sleek, and had a torn ear. We would share secrets and crumbs, and he would curl up beside me in my tiny coffin bed. He showed me how to creep without being heard, how to nibble on dried fruit without making a sound, and how to listen for the heartbeats above. There was one heartbeat I learned to follow most closely: the girl in the village. She had warm skin and honey-colored hair. Her laugh tickled the roots of the oak trees above our crypt, and her footsteps made the moss dance. I didn't know her name, only the echo of her life. I was drawn to her the way ivy seeks sunlight, not to consume, but to touch, to understand. I watched from the shadows, always careful not to be seen. "She is life," Mother said when she caught me peering up through the cracks in the mausoleum gate. "And you are death. That doesn't mean you can't be curious, but always remember who you are." I didn't quite understand what that meant, not yet. All I knew was that I longed to know her favorite color, what stories she whispered to the stream, what songs she sang as she picked wildflowers. I was too small to reach the world above, but I made promises to myself in the dark. One day, I would find a way to speak to her. When I turned 7, or the vampire version of it. Mother gifted me a cloak spun from midnight itself. You will not burn in moonlight, she said, but the sun is your enemy. This will help you walk in the pale hours of night. I wore it proudly, trailing its velvet hem behind me like a river of dusk. My feet learned the tunnels that wound beneath the cemetery and into the hills beyond. Corvin often rode on my shoulder, squeaking in excitement as we explored the silence between the stars. I found old bones that whispered riddles, and bats who recited limericks. I danced with will-o'-the-wisps and listened to the lullabies of the dead. I was never afraid, because fear was something the night did not teach me. Still, I often wondered, what did it mean to grow up when you were undead? Was it a slow blooming of shadows instead of petals? Was it the learning of hungers and the taming of instincts? Was it the ache to know love from afar? Perhaps it was all of these. Perhaps it was none. But I knew this. I was a Lyra, daughter of dusk, cradle-born beneath a crypt. And though I had never touched the sun, my heart was full of its stories. And my story was only just beginning. By the time I was what mortals might call 10, the walls of our crypt had become too small for my questions. Mother always said vampire children are born with old minds but young curiosities. She wasn't wrong. I asked about everything. The why of the stars, the how of shadows, the names of the wind and the dirt and the strange red roots that glowed in the deepest corners of the mausoleum halls. Sometimes she answered with a smile. Sometimes, with silence. Some things, she would say, brushing my hair with a silver comb made from the rib of a poet, must be learned by feeling, not by knowing. That was when the night lessons began. Mother did not send me to a school like the village children had. My lessons came beneath the moon, in forests where the trees whispered in ancient tongues and streams trickled secrets known only to the dusk. I wore my midnight cloak and carried a little satchel filled with charms, garlic that didn't bother me, a shard of moonstone, a bottle of dream water, and a blackened feather from Corvin's kin. Lesson 1. How to move without being seen. The night loves you, Elira, Mother whispered as we stood beneath a tree older than kingdoms. But to walk through it, you must be part of it. She showed me how to step only when the wind blew, how to mimic the stillness of statues, how to soften my breath until even a moth would not stir. I practiced for weeks. I moved through glades where deer rested, past sleeping foxes, even beneath the swinging lanterns of gravekeepers who never noticed my passing. I was silent. I was shadow. I was becoming. Lesson 2. The language of blood. It is not as dreadful as it sounds. Vampires do not drink from throats every night. Most nights, I was fed warm from a goblet, harvested ethically from those who offered it in secret. But Mother wanted me to understand more than just hunger. She wanted me to know what blood could tell. This is the memory of the body, she explained. It carries dreams and sorrows, triumphs and truths. You must listen before you ever take. We practiced with vials, blood from different creatures and donors. She taught me to hold a droplet on my tongue and sense its story. One told of heartbreak in a garden, another of a fox hunted under starlight, another still of a young woman who danced in the village square and wished someone would notice her. I thought I knew who that last one belonged to, and my heart beat strangely for hours after. Lesson 3. Never forget your soul, even if others do. That one, Mother didn't teach with words. It came in the form of an argument, our first real one. I had wandered too far one dusk, through the tunnels and into the edge of the village. I saw the girl again, the one with honey hair, sitting beside the old fountain. She was humming. The sound turned my bones to mist. I stayed in the shadows, unseen, unnoticed. But when I returned, Mother knew. You smelled the world again, she said, her voice sharp. You tasted it without touching it. I just wanted to see her, I whispered. She is alive. You are not, she snapped. Then, softer, Elira. You cannot grow by pretending you are something else. You must grow as you are. That is the only path that will not wound you. I didn't cry, though I wanted to. My body knew no tears, only the ache behind the eyes. I fled to my room, buried under blankets that smelled of lavender and dust, and refused to come out for 2 nights. It was Corvin who nudged me gently on the 3rd night. He crawled under the folds, pressed his nose to mine, and squeaked like he was telling me that I didn't have to be one thing or another. I could just be Elira, and maybe that was enough. Mother left a rose beside my bed, deep red and half-wilted. Attached was a note: even the dead can love, but we must learn the kind that does not burn. I pressed the note against my chest and decided to try again. Not to see the girl, not yet, but to learn more about myself. About what I could become. Over the next few seasons, I grew not in size, but in stillness, in strength, in sense. I could tell when a storm was coming by the taste of the air. I learned how to find dreams leaking from grave markers. I even started writing poems in the dust on the walls, little verses only the ghosts could read. One night, Mother took me deeper than ever before. Past the crypts, past the tunnels, past even the hollow tree where the owls held court. We came to a chamber filled with mirrors. But these mirrors did not show us. They shimmered with moments. What is this place? I asked. This is the Hall of Echoes, she said. Each vampire child must come here before they begin their next stage. I approached a mirror that pulsed like a heartbeat. Inside, I saw myself older, with sharper features, standing on a cliff, moonlight painting silver across my shoulders. She's beautiful, I whispered. She's you, Mother said. If you walk the path that is true to your soul. And if I don't? Mother said nothing. The silence told me everything. That night, I made another promise, my second one. I would not fear the world above. I would not let the hunger consume the heart. I would grow into someone the girl by the fountain could meet without fear. I would become not just a vampire, but a dream walker of dusk, a bridge between silence and song. And the night, forever and always, would be my teacher. I was 11 winters old when I drank starlight for the first time. Not in the way mortals might imagine. I didn't sip it from a chalice or catch it in a crystal vial. No, starlight was a kind of magic that settled deep inside you, a memory that lit up even the darkest chambers of the soul. And on that particular night, I was ready to taste it. It was the winter solstice, the longest night of the year. Mother woke me before dusk with a rare urgency in her voice. Come, Elira. The time has come. She'd never spoken like that before. Her usual calm, slow cadence had been replaced by a quiet trembling. I dressed quickly in my midnight cloak, brushing a hand over Corvin's sleeping form. He stirred, then curled tighter into the curve of my pillow. The air in the crypt had changed. Even the shadows seemed to lean forward. Mother guided me down a spiraling tunnel I had never entered. It twisted like a vine, tighter and tighter, until it opened into a cavern high above the surface. The stone walls shimmered faintly, as if the stars themselves had been carved into them. A circle of ancient vampires stood waiting, each cloaked in the dusk of their homeland. Their eyes glowed like embers, some gold, some silver, a few the haunting violet of deep-time bloodlines. They murmured greetings to Mother and regarded me with expressions I couldn't read. The one in the center stepped forward. She was tall, with white hair that fell like icicles and a voice like frost on glass. You are Elira of the Crescent Crypt, she said. Daughter of Lysandra, blood-bound to silence and song. Tonight, you are to receive your soul mark. I blinked. My soul mark. Mother touched my hand. It is the symbol of your becoming. No vampire child may pass into their next stage without it. It is a gift and a test. I nodded, heart fluttering like bat wings. The tall vampire gestured to the pool in the center of the cavern. It was smooth as obsidian, but it reflected the stars from the sky above, though there was no visible opening. I knelt beside it and leaned in. The stars rippled like candlelight. "Drink," said the tall one. And I did. The starlight touched my tongue like frost-bitten honey. It was both sweet and sharp, 1,000 sensations crashing into me at once, memories I had never lived, lives I had never touched. I saw flashes. A girl in white dancing through falling snow, a lonely vampire playing the violin to a rose bush, a wolf running through moonlight and never looking back. Then, silence. A warm silence, not cold or dead. A quiet that wrapped around my bones like velvet and whispered, "You are not alone." I fell back from the pool, gasping. My chest ached, not from pain, but from the weight of what had entered it. The tall vampire raised a hand. "Show us your soul mark, child." I looked down. A silver design shimmered just beneath the skin of my wrist, 3 crescent moons, each smaller than the last, linked by a vine of thorns. Mother let out a soft breath. "The Moondrinker's mark. Rare and powerful. What does it mean?" I whispered. The tall one smiled faintly. "It means your path lies between longing and light. You are meant to walk close to the living world, but never fully within it." That made something inside me twist. A small part of me had hoped my soul mark would mean the opposite, that maybe I would be different, closer to the girl in the village. But deep down, I already knew. I belonged to the hush of stars, not the warmth of fires. The ritual ended with a song, sung by all the gathered elders. Their voices wove around me like threads of old magic, stitching the starlight into my veins. When it was done, they vanished one by one, shadows slipping through cracks in the world. Mother stayed with me, holding my hand as we sat beside the fading pool. "You were brave," she said quietly. "And your mark. I think it's beautiful." I looked at it, silver and soft beneath my skin. "It hurts a little. All true things do." We sat in silence, listening to the distant whisper of night creatures. Eventually, I asked, "Did you ever want to be human again?" She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was quieter than ever. "Once. A very long time ago. But I learned that what I truly longed for wasn't humanity. It was understanding. Of what? Of who I am. Of what it means to be this, and still be whole." That night, we returned to the crypt with the stars still glowing in my blood. Corvin chirped sleepily from the pillow, unaware that anything had changed. But I had. Deeply. Quietly. I wrote in the dust that evening, "Starlight tastes like sorrow and sweetness. It whispers what the mirror cannot." I carry it now, a silver secret beneath my skin. And when I curled into my blankets, I dreamed not of the village girl or the sun, but of walking barefoot on the surface of the moon, my cloak fluttering like wings behind me, alone and free. Not long after I received my soul mark, I saw the girl again. The one from the village. The one with honey-colored hair. But this time, she saw me too. It happened just past the twilight hour, when the world held its breath between dusk and dark. I had been wandering farther and farther from the crypt lately, through old tunnels and forgotten trails, led by a quiet yearning I couldn't quite name. Corvin had stayed behind, nursing a sore paw from a tumble he took in the attic crawl space. I remember that I had followed the scent of wood smoke and crushed herbs. It led me to a clearing on the edge of the forest, where fireflies floated like drifting stars. And there, standing near an old well, holding a lantern that glowed soft and gold, was the girl. She was humming again. The same song I remembered from when I was small. A lilting tune, simple and full of joy. Her lantern lit her from beneath, casting shadows that danced on her cheeks. She had a book tucked under her arm and wore a shawl woven with little stars. I meant to stay hidden. Truly, I did. I crouched behind a tree, silent as I'd been taught. But then a fox darted between us, startled by an owl's hoot, and in that flicker of motion, her eyes found mine. Time stretched. Her face didn't twist in fear. She didn't scream. Instead, she blinked slowly, as if unsure what she was seeing. I stepped back into the deeper shadows, heart pounding. Then something unimaginable happened. She smiled. "Hello," she said, voice soft. "You don't have to hide." I froze. Every part of my training screamed to vanish, to disappear like mist into the trees. But I stayed. Her voice tugged at something ancient and aching in me. The part that dreamed of warmth, of belonging, of being more than dusk and silence. She took a step closer, lantern held low. "I've seen you before, you know. I thought you were a dream." I found my voice, quiet and trembling. "I'm not a dream." "I didn't think so," she said. "Dreams don't leave footprints." I looked down. Sure enough, I had left soft impressions in the moss. "What's your name?" she asked. "Elira," I whispered. She smiled again. "I'm Murrin." Murrin. Her name settled into my chest like a candle being lit. I had something now, something real. A name to the longing. "You live in the village?" I asked. She nodded. "At the edge, near the apothecary. My grandmother makes salves and tinctures. I help her gather herbs." I didn't know what to say. Every moment I stayed was another moment I risked being discovered, another rule broken. But I couldn't leave. "Not yet. Would you like to sit?" she asked, gesturing to a large stone near the well. I nodded, slowly, carefully. We sat side by side, not too close. Her lantern glowed between us. I tried not to look at her too much, afraid I'd shatter the moment. "What were you reading?" I asked. She lifted the book. "Folk tales. My favorite kind. I like the ones where monsters are just misunderstood people." My breath caught. She looked at me sideways. "I don't think you're a monster." My throat was tight. "I'm not like you." "Good," she said with a grin. "The world has enough of me." That made me laugh, a soft sound I hadn't made in weeks. We spoke until the fireflies began to drift higher into the trees, until the moon climbed like a silver coin into the sky. She didn't ask questions I couldn't answer. I didn't give truths that would end the moment. It was fragile, this thing blooming between us like the petals of a flower that only opens at night. When it was time to leave, she stood and looked at me with a quiet expression. "Will I see you again?" I hesitated. "Maybe." She held out the book. "Take it." "I've read it a dozen times." I can't." "You can," she said, tucking it gently into my hands. "And when you're done, you can bring it back." I clutched it tightly. "Thank you. Good night, Elira." "Good night, Murrin." And then she was gone, walking back toward the village, her lantern bobbing like a golden star in the dark. That night, I didn't return to the crypt right away. I sat under a willow tree and opened the book. The pages smelled of dried mint and candle smoke. The stories were old, but I read them as if they were written for me. One tale told of a girl who fell in love with the moon. Another of a fox who turned into a girl to befriend a lonely ghost. I pressed the book to my chest and looked up at the stars. My soul mark tingled beneath my skin, like it knew something new had entered me. For the first time, I didn't feel like a creature of the night. I felt young, hopeful, seen. And somewhere, far off, I swore I could hear the night humming the tune of Murrin's song. After that night, the world felt different. The crypt was the same, quiet halls echoing with memory, candlelight flickering against ancient stone, Corvin chirping from his perch, but I moved through it with a secret tucked beneath my ribs. Her name, her smile, the way she didn't look away. I had the book hidden beneath my pillow, its pages now worn with rereading. Murrin's stories clung to me like perfume. Tales of clever wolves, brave girls, and forgotten kingdoms hidden in fog. I memorized the words, whispered them in the dark, traced the drawings with my fingers like they were spells. I didn't tell Mother. It wasn't fear that kept me silent. It was something stranger, something softer. Like wrapping a fragile blossom in both hands, shielding it from the wind. I wasn't ready to share this yet. It was mine. But secrets in the dark grow roots. Each night after my studies, I would sneak out, careful not to wake the shadows or alert the whispering walls. I followed the twisting paths through the forest until I reached the clearing with the well. The stone still held her scent, lavender, ash, a hint of honeyed herbs. Sometimes she was there waiting. Sometimes I arrived first. Either way, we always met beneath the weeping willow, its branches forming a curtain between our world and the rest. She never asked too many questions. She didn't need to. Murrin was a girl who collected moments instead of explanations. She'd bring tea in little jars, honey-cured fruit in wax paper, poems she'd written in the margins of her books. I couldn't eat or drink, but I treasured every offering. I brought her things too. A glass vial filled with captured moonlight. A locket I'd carved from the bone of a songbird. A pressed moth's wing that shimmered blue in the dark. Things only the night could give. "Your hands are cold," she said once, pressing her palms to mine. "They always are," I whispered. She didn't flinch. "I don't mind." I wanted to tell her everything. About the crypt. About my soul mark. About the starlight that sang in my veins. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, we made our own rituals. Lanterns lit with fireflies. Books read aloud in turns. Nights spent lying on the moss, counting stars in silence. One night, as the air turned colder and leaves began to fall like forgotten promises, she asked, "Do you ever go out during the day?" I hesitated. "No, why not? It's not for me." Murrin didn't push. She only nodded, as if that was enough. But the question lingered, like a stone in the corner of a dream. Later, I crept back to the crypt. Corvin flew in lazy circles above my bed before settling on my shoulder. "You saw her again," Mother said from the doorway, her voice unreadable. I froze. "How long have you known?" I asked. "Since the second night." My heart sank. "Are you angry?" "No," she said, stepping closer. "But I am afraid." I looked up. Her eyes, usually cool and calm, were clouded. "She's kind," I said. "She's not like the others. They always seem kind, Elira. Until they see what we are. Until they feel the weight of it. She knows I'm different. But not how. Not yet." I clenched my hands. What if she never runs? What if she stays? Mother sighed. "Then you will learn what it means to love something that cannot last. That is a lesson older than even I." I didn't sleep that morning. I lay in bed, staring at the stone ceiling, heart aching in strange and unfamiliar ways. Corvin nestled beside me, warm despite his feathers. I dreamed, half awake, of Murrin's hands cupping a flame. Of her walking into the crypt with lanterns in her hair, unafraid. Of stars bending toward her. When next we met, beneath the willow, she brought a mirror. "I want to draw you," she said. I laughed. "There's no point." "Why?" "I don't reflect." Her brow furrowed. Is that a metaphor or? I hesitated. Then, perhaps foolishly, I told her. I'm not like you, Murrin. I don't walk in sunlight. I don't eat bread or breathe warmth. I am made of silence. I live in a crypt. I sleep beneath roses that never bloom. Her eyes widened, but she didn't move. I swallowed. I'm not alive, not in the way you are. She set down the mirror. Then how do you laugh like that? I blinked. What? If you weren't alive, your laugh wouldn't make my ribs flutter. I stared at her, unsure if I should cry or vanish. She reached out and touched my soul mark, just below my wrist. Her fingers didn't tremble. It's warm, she said. I looked down. It was glowing. Only a little. Just enough to be seen. You're starlight, she said softly. And I like stars. And just like that, the weight lifted. That night, we didn't speak much. We lay beneath the willow, hands just barely brushing. She hummed her tune, and I closed my eyes. And for a moment, the world was still. For a moment, it didn't matter what I was. It only mattered that I was hers, and she, perhaps, was mine. As the nights passed and Murrin's presence became a quiet constant in my world, I began to feel something I had never truly known before, belonging. Not to the crypt, not to the darkness, but to a thread that wove between us like invisible silk. But nothing in our world remains untouched forever. One night, I returned from the willow clearing to find the crypt changed. The candles burned low and blue, casting elongated shadows along the arched corridors. The air shimmered with tension. Corvin met me at the entrance with his wings flared and feathers ruffled. Something's wrong, I whispered. I followed the scent of ancient blood and dried incense to the central hall, where Mother stood with two strangers cloaked in deep burgundy. Their eyes, pale and unblinking, fixed on me the moment I entered. Elira, Mother said, her voice calm but edged in steel. These are elders from the Hollow Court. They've come to speak of your progress. The word made my stomach twist. One of the elders stepped forward. His voice was like falling snow, soft, but cold to the marrow. We have heard rumors, child, of moonlit walks, of human company. I didn't answer. The soul mark you bear is no small matter, the other elder said. She was tall and sharp, with fingers that looked like they could unmake dreams. It marks you for roles that require purity of focus, loyalty to the night, discipline. She is disciplined, Mother said. She is still learning, as we all once did. But the world grows thin, said the man. The veil that separates us from them is fraying. If one of our young loses her way now, there may be no returning. They turned their eyes back to me. Do you care for the human girl? The woman asked. I felt my soul mark throb beneath my skin. Yes, I said quietly. A pause. Then a look exchanged between the elders. Then she must be forgotten. No, I whispered. She endangers you, the man said. And us. If she speaks, if she stumbles, if she tells a tale she doesn't understand. She wouldn't, I said. She's still human. They break, Elira. Even when they mean not to. Mother's eyes met mine. There was sorrow in them, but no surprise. She had always known this moment would come. You have one moon cycle, the woman said at last. 4 weeks. Use it to say goodbye. After that, if the connection remains, we will sever it. One way or another. They left like smoke, vanishing into the tunnels without a sound. Mother didn't speak for a long time. Finally, she turned to me. I am sorry, she said. I won't forget her. No, she said. You won't. But you may have to let her go. I fled to my room, trembling with fury. Corvin landed on my shoulder, gently brushing his beak against my cheek. Why is loving wrong? I asked the dark. There was no answer. Only the distant sound of dripping water and the heavy quiet of the crypt. The next night, I didn't go to the willow. I couldn't. If I saw Murrin, I wouldn't be able to pretend. I would tell her. I would cry. I would beg her to run far away from me. But 3 days later, she came to me. I found her standing in the clearing, a satchel slung over her shoulder, her lantern lit and her eyes worried. I waited, she said. And you didn't come. I couldn't, I whispered. She took a step closer. Did I do something wrong? No, I said, trying not to shake. It's me. It's all of this. The stories. The night. The mark. The Elira, she said gently. Breathe. I did. I took in a long, shaking breath, and when I exhaled, it came out ragged. I'm in danger, I said. Because of you. And so are you. They've seen us. They've heard. Who? She asked. The elders. The Hollow Court. They decide what we are allowed to love. And they've decided I'm not allowed, she said flatly. I nodded, ashamed. Her jaw tightened. That's not their choice. It is, I said. Because I'm not. I'm not free. Not really. I'm part of something older than myself. Something that doesn't want me to be warm. Murrin reached out and took my hand. Then let's make our own rules, she said. Tears welled in my eyes. They'll come for us. Then let them. I'm not afraid. I wished I could believe her. I wished I could be that brave. But the night had eyes. And they were watching. We made a plan. Every third night, we would still meet just for moments. In different places. Near the river, by the orchard ruins, beneath the twisted tree near the ridge. We would carry no lanterns, leave no scent. It was dangerous. Reckless. But it was ours. And each meeting felt like breathing after holding your breath for too long. We didn't speak of the elders again. We spoke of stars, of dreams, of the way the world should be. Murrin gave me a ribbon from her hair. I braided it into the strap of my satchel. I gave her a black feather from Corvin. She wore it behind her ear. One night, she whispered, I think I love you. I had no words. Only tears, and the way my soul mark burned like silver fire against my skin. And I thought, let the elders try to erase this. Let them come. We are nightborn, but our hearts still burn. The first snowfall came like a blessing. The world outside the crypt was transformed, branches bowed beneath soft weight, paths muffled into silence, the forest blanketed in pearl. It felt like a secret world, the kind Murrin and I had always imagined. But under the snow, dangers slept lightly. We met in a half-collapsed chapel near the edge of the woods, where a broken rose window cast soft moonlight onto the snow-covered floor. It had once been a place of worship, I think, long before vampires were whispered of in fear. Now it belonged to us. Murrin brought 2 stones, warmed by the fire at her grandmother's hearth, and wrapped them in cloth. She placed one between us, her hands trembling with cold. You didn't have to come, I told her. She smiled, red-cheeked. You say that every time. And I always do. I held her hand in mine. Your fingers are colder than mine. Then we match, she said. We sat in silence for a while, breathing frost and dreaming aloud. She talked about a garden she wanted to grow in spring, foxglove, moonflowers, lavender. I told her about the hidden garden deep beneath the crypt, where bloodvines grew and moths danced in still air. I'd never shown anyone. But now, I wanted to. You could come see it, I said quietly. She tilted her head. Would I be allowed? I'd let you, I said. Even if I had to carry you past every locked door. She laughed, and for a moment, there was no curse, no elders, no danger, only us, cradled in frost and soft firelight. But the moment broke. It always does. A sound. Just outside. My body froze. Every instinct sharpened. Corvin, circling above, let out a warning cry. I rose swiftly, placing myself between the door and Murrin. She knew not to speak. She stayed low, hands curled around the cloth-wrapped stone. A shadow moved past the chapel's broken wall. Tall. Hooded. Then another. I knew them. The hollow court had sent watchers. Not elders, these were enforcers. Trained to correct, to punish, to erase. They're here, I whispered. Murrin's eyes widened. What do? We run. We slipped out the back, into the snow-covered underbrush. I gripped her hand tight. We moved fast and low, Corvin guiding from above. The snow slowed us. It muffled our sound, but also left clear footprints behind. They'll follow, I said. Then we don't stop. We didn't. We ran past the old orchard, through the stone gate swallowed by ivy, down into the forgotten root tunnels I had found as a child. The earth opened to greet me, and I led her inside. The tunnels were tight, cold, and black as ink. But I knew them. I knew which roots would trip you, which turns would spiral in on themselves. I moved with memory. Murrin trusted me. We didn't stop until we reached the hidden garden. She gasped when we entered. Bioluminescent moths flitted through the air. The vines on the ceiling pulsed with gentle light. Crimson blossoms opened and closed like slow breath. A shallow pool in the center glowed faintly with lunar algae. It's like a dream, she whispered. It's real, I said. We sat beside the pool. I tore a strip from my cloak and wiped snow from her hair. You're safe now, I said. But they'll keep coming, won't they? Yes. She was quiet, then reached into her satchel and pulled out a small object wrapped in velvet. She handed it to me. Inside was a dagger. Simple, elegant, silver forged. Its hilt bore an engraving, a single star above an open eye. I took it from my grandmother's trunk, she said. It was for protection. Against creatures like you, I think. I looked at her, surprised. You brought a weapon? No, she said. I brought a choice. If they come for us again, I want to be ready. You'd fight them? I'd fight anything that tries to take you from me. Something deep inside me cracked open at her words. You shouldn't have to fight. Neither should you. I took the dagger. It was cold but balanced. Not for killing. For defending. For choosing. Corvin landed on my shoulder, watching her with his tilted head. She looked up at me. What happens now? We don't run, I said. We prepare. I showed her how to walk the tunnels without sound, how to listen to breath in the dark, how to trace glyphs into the earth that would warn of approach. She taught me how to read wind, how to make salve for burns, how to hold your fear in your throat until it's time to speak. We became our own kind of myth. At night, I dreamed of two girls beneath a ruined chapel, holding hands and lanterns, their names carved into the moon. The hollow court would not forgive, but we would not forget. We were night and fire, lantern and dagger, and the story, our story, was only just beginning. I began writing letters I never meant to send. I didn't know why. Maybe because words left unsaid rot inside you. Maybe because some truths are too heavy to carry alone. I wrote them in the early hours of morning, just before sleep. Inked in silver, folded into parchment, and tucked between the pages of my oldest book. Dear Murrin, I wonder if you realize how quiet you've made the world feel. Even the crypt hums differently when I think of you. Dear Mother, did you ever love someone the court wouldn't let you? Did you let them go? Or did they take them from you? Dear Elders, if I must be knight, Then why do I dream of sunlight? Each letter burned a little more truth into me, and still, I did not send them. I spent my nights in shadow and ink. My days, what passed for days in our sleepless realm, were full of whispers, warnings, and watching. The watchers had not returned, but their silence was a storm waiting to break. Mother noticed. She always did. You've grown sharper, she said. Quieter, too. I'm listening, I replied. To what? To everything that wants to break us. She paused. I wish I could protect you from all of this. You raised me in it, I said, not cruelly, just truthfully. She didn't argue. I think, in some secret chamber of her heart, she still hoped I'd forget Murrin. Let time and fear wear her away. But Murrin wasn't a wound. She was a root, deep and coiled and growing. We still met, though rarely now. Only in places long abandoned, ruined towers, burned clearings, drowned cellars filled with ice. Each meeting was a flame stolen from a frozen world. She brought stories. I brought glyphs. Together, we built something between myth and memory. Then, one night, I found a letter tucked beneath my pillow, written in elegant black script, sealed with the sigil of the Hollow Court. I read it in silence, twice. Then I tore it to pieces. But the word stayed. The soul mark binds you to more than desire. It is the path to succession, to power, to immortality beyond the blood. If you soil it with mortal distraction, it will decay. And so will you. I wanted to scream, to tear down the walls of the crypt and let the light pour in. Instead, I went to the garden. I sat beneath the mothlights. I breathed. I wrote one more letter. Dear Hollow Court, you misunderstand me. My soul mark does not make me powerful. My love does. Try to sever that, and you sever what makes me anything at all. When I met Murrin next, I told her about the letter, about the threat. She didn't flinch. Let them come, she said again. Let them try. I smiled, but something inside me shifted. I didn't want her to fight for me anymore. I wanted to be the storm they feared, the one who changed the ending. Come with me, I said. To the crypt. No, I said. Farther. Past the northern woods. Past the Gravesong Lake. There are ruins there. Places even the elders won't go. And we'd live there. We'd make something new. She was quiet. I don't know if I can leave my grandmother, she said finally. She raised me. She'd understand. Would your mother? No, I said. But she doesn't need to. We fell into silence. I knew what I was asking. I wasn't just inviting her to a new place. I was asking her to cross the line that separated our worlds. To live in shadow. To never fully go back. But she surprised me. I'll come, she said. Not right away. Not in haste. But soon. We planned it slowly. She would leave a note. Take her most precious things. The feather. The poems. Her journal. A charm her grandmother had given her, wooden, carved with sunflowers and foxes. I would gather supplies from the crypt, glyphs, tokens, spellweaves, and bloodstones. We would leave during the eclipse, when the moon masked the sun and the world turned strange. That night, in the chapel ruins, she gave me a gift. It was a page from her journal. To love a vampire is to learn the language of silence. To stay is to understand that some stars do not burn, but bloom. She does not cast a shadow. She carries one. But it is hers. And now, it is mine too. I held it like sacred scripture. We embraced beneath the broken window. No words. Just breath and blood and promise. We didn't know who was watching. But they were. The day of the eclipse came cloaked in clouds. It was the sort of day the Hollow Court called a thinning. When the line between living and not could be mistaken, when a soul might wander and forget which side it belongs to. Perfect for disappearing. I woke in the crypt, wrapped in shadows. The air buzzed, magic, tension, time collapsing into something fated. Even the blood vines curled tighter along the walls, as though holding their breath. I gathered what I needed. One satchel, lined with runes. Inside, 2 soulstones, a flicker flask of sunlit ichor, Corvin's feather charm, and the last letter from my father, the one he left before vanishing into mist when I was still small. I didn't say goodbye to Mother. I didn't want to see the look in her eyes. She would know. She always knew. Instead, I left a single glyph burned into the stones by my bed. Not a farewell. A promise. I will return when the night changes. Corvin followed in silence, his wings tucked close. The crypt didn't fight my departure, but it didn't bless it either. It simply let me go, as if waiting to see whether I would survive what came next. Outside, the woods were hushed. Snow fell in slow spirals, each flake a whispered omen. The sky, thick with clouds, grew darker even as morning passed. Murrin waited at the edge of the orchard. She wore a long coat patched with embroidery, stars, feathers, a rising moon. Her grandmother's charm hung from her neck, and in her hands was a small lantern with no flame. I didn't want to bring fire, she said softly. Felt like it would shout. Good, I whispered. We don't need fire. We carry light. We took to the path, just as the eclipse began. The moon moved slowly over the sun, the light fading into ghost grey. Shadows deepened. The wind stilled. We walked past the orchard ruins, past the Gravesong Lake, where ghosts sometimes sang lullabies into reeds. Past the boundary stone, cracked with age and half swallowed by ivy. Beyond it, uncharted land. No vampire clans. No human maps. Only stories, warnings, and the bones of forgotten places. Perfect. It took us 2 hours to find the hollow we had chosen. A valley cradled between hills, with a stone arch sunk deep into the earth like a broken crown. Trees circled it in a ring, branches bare and clawed. There was no path here. No witness. This will do, Murrin said. It's already done, I answered. We entered the ruins together, and for the first time since I was born, I felt free. We cleared the central chamber, brushing moss from old stone, laying blankets, anchoring sigils along the walls. Corvin perched above the doorway, silent sentry. Murrin lit her lantern, not with fire, but with soul glow, drawn from the flicker flask. A soft gold that warmed the corners of the hollow. We built no walls, only trust. We burned no bridges, only letters. That night, we carved our pact into the center stone. A mix of her language and mine. 2 names. 1 promise. Elira and Murrin no court. No chains. Only us. But peace never stays still. The first sign came as a crack in the air, like glass held too tight. I felt it at dawn, just before sleep took me. A pulse through the soul mark on my shoulder. Not pain. Not quite. More like a summoning. I knew that feeling. Someone had found us. I didn't wake Murrin. Not then. She needed rest. Instead, I left a sigil at the door, an alarm of sorts. If anyone crossed its line, I would know. I walked to the ridge above the valley, where the eclipse's aftershadow still lingered. The trees whispered. And waiting there, not 20 steps away, stood my mother. She didn't look angry. She looked old. Not in body, but in heart. Like the centuries she carried had grown too heavy to hide. You left, she said. You knew I would. I did. We stood in silence, the wind threading between us. You broke the rules, she said at last. The rules broke me first. You still have time. No, I said. I have choice. That's different. I taught you to survive, Elira. Not to burn. And I'm not burning, I said. I'm blooming. You just can't tell the difference. She closed her eyes. The hollow court will come. I know. You won't be able to stop them alone. I'm not alone. Her eyes opened, glinting in the dim light. There was something strange in them. Sadness. But also, pride. You were born for more than hiding, she said. But not all power is worth the price. I'm not asking for power, I replied. I'm asking for a life. She stepped forward and placed something in my hand. A vial. Inside, a swirl of dark liquid shimmered. What is it? A thread of your bloodline, she said. Your father's and mine. Use it only if there is no other way. It will call what sleeps beneath. Beneath what? She didn't answer. She turned and disappeared into mist. I returned to the hollow before Murrin woke. I placed the vial beneath the stone with our names. Another promise. Another secret. The eclipse passed. The light returned. But I knew, with bone-deep certainty, the hollow court was coming. And this time, they wouldn't send watchers. The dream came like smoke. I stood on the edge of the orchard, but it was burning. The trees cracked and hissed. The sky had no moon, only a circle of ash. Corvin circled overhead, his wings on fire, silent as ever. Murrin stood on the other side, unreachable. She didn't speak. She just held out her hand. And someone, pulled me back into the fire. I woke choking, my throat dry, my chest heaving as if I hadn't breathed in hours. Murrin stirred beside me, half waking. I calmed her with a brush of my hand. Just a dream, I whispered. But I wasn't sure, because the scent of ash still lingered in the air. We spent the morning rebuilding our wards. The hollow had grown colder, the trees less friendly. Even the moths that lit the garden seemed dimmer, pulsing slower, like the breath of something sleeping deeper beneath us. We should move again, Murrin said. We just finished carving this place, I replied. Exactly. They'll see that. Feel it. She wasn't wrong. Everything we did left a trail. Magic has memory, and the hollow court had ways of reading the world like a scroll. But still, I didn't want to leave. We fight, I said. This time, we stand. She nodded, though her fingers tightened around her lantern. So we prepared. I carved glyphs into the ring of stones. Protection. Concealment. Reflection. Murrin brewed potions with herbs she'd collected from the far hills, burnroot, frostmilk, iron leaf. She coated her silver dagger with ash oil. We didn't speak much those days. Not out of fear, but focus. Every motion mattered. Even Corvin grew quieter. He watched the skies constantly, tilting his head as if listening for the crack of wing beats. Then one afternoon, the wind changed. I felt it in the hollow of my bones. Murrin was out gathering wood when it happened. I was alone in the garden, tracing old runes into the dirt when the air split. Not a sound, more like a pressure. A weight on the world. And then, a voice. Not spoken. Not heard. Just felt. Elira, daughter of Ash and Echo. Your place is not among mortals. Return. Or be returned. The wind tore through the hollow, snuffing lanterns, silencing the moths. I stood tall. No, I whispered. The presence pulled, like a tide trying to take my soul back to sea. But I held ground. No, I said louder. The glyphs flared. The garden shook. The soul mark on my shoulder burned with light and pain. Then it stopped. Silence returned. I collapsed, heart pounding, eyes wet with heat I hadn't felt in years. When Murrin found me, She dropped everything and ran to my side. What happened? They know exactly where we are now, I said. And that night, the Hollow Court sent their herald. It came not as a person, but as a shadow. A cloak without a body. It drifted into our circle and stood just beyond the wards, pulsing with dark light. Its voice scraped through the air like broken glass. You have until the blood moon rises. Return, or we will come through every tree, every flame, every breath you try to take. You cannot undo what you are. Murrin stepped forward, her dagger in hand. But I stopped her. I need to speak. I stepped to the edge of the ward. I was born of your blood, but I am not yours, I said. This life, this soul, is mine now. And if you try to take it, you will find it sharp. The herald tilted its empty hood. So be it. Then it vanished. The air left behind smelled of grave dust and judgment. We did not sleep that night. Instead, we planned. We would not run again. Not this time. Murrin etched a binding circle around our hollow. I opened the vial Mother gave me. The swirl of ancestral blood glowed violet in the lantern light. I poured 3 drops into the pool in the garden. And I whispered, "Let the deep remember me." The pool pulsed once. Then again. Then stilled. We waited. At dawn, the moths returned. And for the first time in days, I saw Murrin smile. "We're not just fighting back," she said. "No," I said, my voice steady. "We're becoming something they never imagined." And in my bones, I felt it begin. The breaking. And the becoming. The dawn cracked open the sky with threads of pink and gold, but the hollow beneath the stone arch felt colder than ever. The air hung thick with expectation, the kind that makes your skin prickle, like something unseen is watching, waiting to decide your fate. I woke first, the weight of the vial's magic pulsing beneath my skin, the ancestral blood flowing with a strange warmth. Murrin stirred beside me, her breath slow and even, but I knew the peace was temporary. We moved silently through the hollow, each step careful. The wards we had built seemed alive, humming softly with power. It was a lullaby and a warning, all at once. As the morning wore on, I felt the first tremors of change within me, a deep shift, like the roots of an ancient tree cracking through frozen earth. My soul mark burned brighter, sending pulses of light beneath my skin, but it no longer felt like a chain. It was a spark. Murrin noticed it, too. "Something's different," she whispered, brushing a stray lock of hair from my face. "You're changing." I nodded, the truth settling in my bones. "I think the blood from the vial has woken something deep inside me. Something old. Something powerful." We spent the day preparing. Sharpening daggers, weaving protective spells, and speaking quietly of what might come. Outside the hollow, the world carried on, unaware of the fragile stand we made against the tide. Night fell with a heavy silence. The blood moon rose in the sky, a crimson eye watching over us. That's when the breaking began. It started with the earth trembling beneath our feet. Stones cracked and shifted, and the air grew thick with the scent of ancient things awakening. From the shadows beneath the hollow, something stirred, a presence, vast and cold, yet filled with an ancient hunger. I felt it coil inside me, and at the same time, the power surged outward, a tide breaking free. The wards flared to life, glowing with runes of silver and violet, casting the hollow in a sacred light. The presence spoke, not with words, but with echoes in my mind. "You have called us, child of blood and shadow. Now, become what you were always meant to be." I felt myself unraveling and remaking all at once. The ancestral blood woven into my veins sang with the deep magic of forgotten nights and starless skies. Corvin cried out, circling above, wings beating fiercely against the dark. Murrin held my hand, steadying me as the power reshaped my very being. I was breaking from who I was taught to be and becoming something new. A beacon of shadow and light, bound not by the laws of the Hollow Court, but by my own will. The earth settled. The air cleared. I looked down at my hands, no longer trembling, but steady. The soul mark glowed softly, alive with promise. Murrin smiled, tears shining in her eyes. "We did it," she said. "No," I replied. "We just began." The night stretched before us, endless and full of possibility. And for the first time, I knew that whatever came next, the Hollow Court, the Watchers, the shadows, I would face it not as a girl bound by fear, but as a force awakened. The night after the breaking was the darkest I had ever known, not because the sky was black, but because everything felt suspended between what was and what could be. The power swirling inside me was no longer a secret whisper. It was a storm, wild and unpredictable, rippling through my veins like liquid night. Murrin stayed close, her presence a steady anchor. We sat beneath the arch of the hollow, where moonlight spilled silver and cool. I traced my fingers along the glowing runes on the stones, feeling their warmth, a subtle promise of protection. The silence was deep, but never empty. From the edge of the trees came a rustle, a whisper carried by the wind, soft enough to be mistaken for the sigh of the night itself. Corvin stirred, wings fluttering, eyes sharp. I rose slowly, heart pounding, senses alert. "Stay behind me," I whispered to Murrin. The rustling grew louder, and then the shadows began to move. Figures emerged, cloaked in black, their faces hidden beneath hoods embroidered with the sigils of the Hollow Court. Their footsteps made no sound on the mossy ground, but the weight of their presence pressed against my skin like cold water. Children of the bloodline, the tallest one spoke, voice low and smooth like polished stone. "You have called to powers beyond your reckoning." I squared my shoulders. "We're not children anymore." The figure's eyes gleamed from beneath the hood. "The court does not tolerate rebellion. You have one chance to return, or be taken." Murrin stepped forward, dagger raised. "We're not afraid." The leader laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You should be." The shadows moved as one, encircling us. The air thickened, the magic between us crackling. I felt the ancestral blood thrumming, a fierce fire beneath my skin. "No," I said firmly. "We make our own fate." With a cry, I released the power that had been growing inside me. The runes around the hollow flared bright, sending waves of silver light that shattered the shadows. The cloaked figures recoiled, but they did not retreat. The battle had begun. The battle wasn't what I expected. No clashing swords or roaring spells. Instead, it was a dance, silent, swift, a shadow play beneath the blood moon's watchful eye. The cloaked figures moved like smoke, slipping through the wards, weaving between trees, striking with blades that shimmered like cold stars. But the power inside me rippled outward, a shield of silver light that bent their attacks, dissolving their forms like mist in morning sun. Murrin fought beside me, her dagger flashing, her resolve fierce. Corvin darted through the air, a living arrow of darkness and feathers. Every breath, every heartbeat felt stretched thin, as if time itself slowed, pulling us into a rhythm older than memory. I called upon the deep magic awakened by the blood vial, drawing strength from the forgotten nights woven into my veins. The ancestral power surged, answering with a roar that shook the hollow. One figure broke through the shield. A woman with eyes like polished obsidian, her presence cold and sharp. She moved toward me, graceful and deadly. "You wield stolen power, child," she said, voice like ice cracking. "Power born of my blood," I shot back. We clashed, light and shadow entwined, until the hollow trembled with the force of our wills. Murrin held the others at bay, shouting warnings, binding runes to slow their advance. The battle stretched into hours, the night bleeding away beneath the rising dawn. Finally, the obsidian-eyed woman faltered, her form flickering like a dying flame. "I will return," she hissed before vanishing into the thinning shadows. The remaining figures dispersed, melting into the forest, leaving silence heavy as stone. I sank to my knees, breath ragged but spirit unbroken. Murrin knelt beside me, eyes bright with both relief and worry. "This isn't over," she said softly. "No," I agreed. But in that quiet moment, beneath the pale dawn, I knew one truth more certain than fear. I was no longer a girl hiding from her destiny. I was a force reborn from shadow and blood. And whatever the hollow caught through next, I would face it with fire in my veins. The days after the battle were strange, like waking from a storm into a strange calm. The hollow felt different, quieter, but charged, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. Murrin and I worked to repair the wards, though the magic we'd unleashed had left the stones cracked and weary. I found myself wandering the edges of the forest more often, drawn to places where the shadows grew long and the moonlight spilled like silver blood. One night, I sat beneath an ancient oak, the roots twisted like secrets buried deep in the earth. Corvin perched above, silent sentinel. The air was cool, filled with the scent of moss and something else. A faint trace of jasmine and smoke. I closed my eyes and let the power inside me hum. The ancestral blood was no longer just a spark, it was a river, winding through me, pulling me toward truths I hadn't yet dared to face. "Tell me what you see," Murrin said softly, stepping beside me. I hesitated. What if what I find is too much? She smiled, the kindness in her eyes alight in the dark. "Then we face it together." With that, I let the magic guide me. Visions bloomed behind my eyelids. Fragments of memories not my own. A city lost beneath the waves, where moonlight touched coral towers. A bloodline stretching back through centuries, marked by love and sacrifice, betrayal and hope. Faces I didn't recognize but felt like home. I saw my mother, fierce and gentle, her eyes holding storms, and a man with silver hair who whispered promises beneath the stars. The visions faded, leaving me breathless. What was that? Murrin asked. "Who I am, and who I was meant to be," I said. "We have more to uncover," she nodded. The moon rose high, casting its pale glow over the hollow. And for the first time, I didn't feel lost. I felt like I belonged. The morning light filtered through the ancient trees like threads of gold, but the weight of the night's visions settled heavy on my shoulders. I awoke to find Murrin already awake, tending the glowing runes along the path. "You look different," she said softly, eyes scanning me with a mix of wonder and concern. "I feel different," I admitted. "Like I'm carrying something old, something heavy." She nodded, coming to stand beside me. "Bloodlines are burdens," she said, "but also gifts. They shape us, but they don't define us." Her words lingered as I traced the tattoo on my shoulder, the soul mark glowing faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat beneath my skin. The ancestral blood was a river that ran deep, but I was learning to swim in it. That day, we journeyed beyond the hollow, stepping cautiously into the world that had once seemed so distant. The village nearby was cloaked in mist, faces familiar yet distant, eyes curious and wary. I felt their gazes like needles, sensing the fear and whispers that followed a vampire's shadow. But I also saw kindness, the shopkeeper who smiled behind her counter, the children who chased shadows in the street, the old storyteller who spun tales beneath the stars. In the quiet moments, I realized that my story was entwined with theirs, threads of light and dark weaving together. Murrin and I spoke of the future, of plans to protect the hollow, to build alliances, to uncover the secrets hidden in blood and stone. The road ahead was uncertain, shadowed by threats from the hollow court and the ghosts of the past. But as I stood beneath the fading sun, I felt the first stirrings of hope. I was no longer just a vampire girl growing up. I was a guardian of something greater, a beacon in the night. And I was ready to fight for the life I chose. The nights grew longer as the autumn deepened, and the veil between worlds felt thinner than ever. Shadows stretched like fingers across the hollow, whispering secrets meant for ears brave enough to listen. I could feel the magic pulsing not just inside me, but all around, an electric hum threading through the trees, the earth, even the very air I breathed. One evening, as the moon hung low and heavy, Murrin and I sat by the pool in the garden, the surface shimmering like liquid glass. "I've been feeling it too," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Something is coming. Something old." I dipped my fingers into the water, watching the ripples distort the moon's reflection. The ancestral blood thrummed, a steady heartbeat beneath my skin, urging me to see beyond. Closing my eyes, I let the magic guide me once more. Visions bloomed. Flickers of a forgotten past, a city of light and shadow crumbling beneath a storm, voices calling across time. I saw faces, friends and foes, caught in the dance of fate. When I opened my eyes, Murrin was watching me, her expression grave. "We have to prepare," she said. "Whatever comes, we face it together." Outside, the wind carried a new scent, sharp, metallic, and full of promise. The veil was thinning, and with it, the boundary between what was and what could be blurred. The hollow held its breath. And so did I. The veil between worlds grew thinner each night, a delicate membrane stretched taut, shimmering with unseen power. The hollow seemed to hold its breath, waiting for something to cross over, something ancient and restless. I felt it in my bones long before the signs appeared. The ancestral blood pulsed with urgency, a deep rhythm that echoed through the nights and seeped into my dreams. Shadows danced just beyond my sight, whispering secrets I could almost understand. Murrin and I moved with cautious purpose, patching wards and casting sigils, but even our combined magic felt fragile against the tide gathering beyond the forest's edge. One evening, under a waning moon, I stood alone at the hollow's heart, the runes beneath my feet glowing faintly. The air was thick and electric, the scent of wet earth mingling with something older, like the memory of a storm long past. Closing my eyes, I reached deep inside, calling on the power that had been awakened within me. The ancestral blood answered with a surge, illuminating my mind with visions, fragmented and fleeting, like echoes carried on the wind. I saw a city lost beneath waves of time, a place where light and shadow intertwined, where beings of power walked between worlds. I saw faces, some kind, others cruel, etched in memory and myth. Among them was a figure I recognized from the stories my mother once whispered, a woman with eyes like liquid night, her hands stained with both creation and destruction. The vision shifted, and I found myself standing before a great gate, its surface etched with symbols that pulsed with an eerie light. A voice, low and distant, drifted to me. "The key lies within the bloodline. The forgotten must awaken." I opened my eyes to find Murrin approaching, her expression unreadable. "You've seen it too," I said. She nodded. "The Hollow Court has secrets buried deeper than we imagined. And they're stirring." That night, the Hollow was restless. The air hummed with power, and the boundary between our world and the unknown thinned until it felt like a whisper away. From the shadows emerged figures, not the cloaked agents of the court, but something older. Their forms flickered like fading stars, faces indistinct yet full of sorrow and longing. They spoke in voices like wind through dry leaves, telling stories of betrayal, sacrifice, and a bloodline lost to time. I listened, heart pounding, as the forgotten whispered their truths. The burden of my lineage pressed down, heavy yet alive. I realized then that my journey was far from over. To protect the Hollow, to honor those lost, I would have to embrace every fragment of my blood, the light and the shadow, the love and the pain. The echoes of the forgotten were calling me home. And I had to answer. The final chapter of my childhood, not the end, but a beginning woven in shadow and light. The air hung heavy with expectation as Murrin and I prepared for the night ahead. The hollow was alive, every rune and stone shimmering with ancient power, a fortress born from blood and will. I could feel the pulse of my lineage like a living thing beneath my skin, the ancestral blood singing a lullaby of storms and stars. The memories from the visions haunted me still. The lost city beneath waves, the forgotten voices calling across time, the promise of a destiny shaped by both sacrifice and hope. Tonight, I would step beyond the girl I was and into the woman I was becoming. As twilight melted into night, the moon rose full and unyielding, casting silver light that danced like fire across the leaves. The hollow court's shadows gathered at the edges of the forest, their eyes burning with cold fury and caution. But I was no longer the scared child hiding in the dark. I was the heir of a bloodline older than the stones beneath my feet. The air crackled with magic as I stepped into the clearing, Murrin beside me, Corvin circling overhead like a guardian spirit. The leader of the court emerged, a figure cloaked in night, eyes like polished obsidian, face a mask of disdain and challenge. "You have defied us," she said, voice cold as winter's breath. "You have embraced the forbidden blood. What do you think you are?" I met her gaze, the fire in my veins blazing brighter than ever. "I am the night's daughter," I replied. "The breaker of chains, the keeper of forgotten truths." With those words, I summoned the full power within me, a storm of silver light and shadow, swirling around like the dance of stars and darkness. The runes etched in the hollow blazed to life, binding the clearing in a circle of protection and power. The court advanced, but their steps faltered against the wall of my will. Murrin fought fiercely beside me, her courage a steady flame in the chaos. Corvin dived through the fray, swift and fierce, scattering shadows like embers. The battle raged, but this time, I was the storm. I was the river breaking through stone. I was the night, eternal and unyielding. As dawn approached, the hollow stood silent, bathed in soft light and the promise of new beginnings. The court retreated, their power broken but not forgotten. I knelt, tracing the glowing runes beneath my hands, feeling the heartbeat of the earth and my blood in perfect harmony. Murrin placed a hand on my shoulder, her smile gentle and proud. "We did it," she said. "No," I whispered, eyes lifted to the rising sun. "We've only just begun." The night was mine, a tapestry of shadows and dreams, of fear and hope. And I was ready to embrace it all. Thank you for listening to this light story. If you enjoyed this lovely tale, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Light Story Club will be here for when you want to listen to another chronicle to help you rest. Goodbye for now.